Welcome to the Writer's Corner live show, your weekly water cooler for authors and readers. And in this episode today, we're going to explore the intricate tapestry of family secrets at the seams, and then dive into the raw, resonant stories of womanhood in And Then You Apply Ice with our author today. Don't go away. We'll be right back with the Writer's Corner live show.
Imagine a world where the lines of reality blur with the fantastical. Embark on journeys from humble beginnings to the pinnacles of literary greatness. On the Writer's Corner, we delve into the lives of unique wordsmiths, known for their compelling storytelling. They are artisans who craft fantastical realms, etched in our memory long after the final page is turned. Every tale begins with a single word, a single idea. Authors create sensations that keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness how they transform setbacks into stepping stones, use refusals to spark growth, and turn rejections into catalysts for new inspiration. Witness the diversity in writing as it gives birth to a vast array of genres, from drama to mystery to children's stories, fantasy, and reality. Join us as we uncover sources of inspiration and the magic that defines the author's craft. Find out how authors breathe life into their characters and meticulously craft narratives and plots that captivate readers. Get a sneak peek into upcoming works, and join us as we celebrate literary greatness, only on the Writer's Corner. We don't just celebrate best-selling Amazon and New York Times authors, but also indie authors. Join us on the journey from the birth of a tale to the creation of a masterpiece, only on the Writer's Corner live show. Stay tuned.
If you've just joining us, then welcome to the Writer's Corner live show. If you are not yet following us on all social media channels, please do, because that way you'll get notified when we go live. I'm Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. Our live stream is made possible by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and BeLive Media, with immense gratitude to BSN, your all-in-one entertainment revolution, because they make it possible for the show to be on Roku, Amazon Fire, Google TV, and Apple TV. So do go ahead and join BSN for a world of boundless creativity. Before we introduce our amazing guest, Pamela, to the show, I want to first say hello to my friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. Mary is a passionate author. She's a certified special needs and disabilities advocate who's also committed to amplifying underrepresented voices. Mary is a speaker, educator, ghostwriter, and songwriter. Mary, how are you today?
I'm doing really well today. I am glad to be here with you. And we are adding another amazing author to our list of amazing authors because we have a great list, don't we? So we're really excited to have Pamela with us today.
Absolutely. Every week is a new excitement. And for those of you who've not yet met our amazing author, Pamela, she is a prolific journalist and acclaimed author whose compelling narratives have graced the pages of very prestigious publications such as the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune. And with a very, very rich blend of fiction and nonfiction showcased in literary journals all over the world. Pamela's writing, it does. Her writing captivates audiences with its depth and also its authenticity. And her novel At the Seams stands as a testament to her literary prowess, earning accolades including the Ark Street Press First Chapter Award. And she's also got degrees from the Brown University and Northwestern University. So Pamela not only crafts compelling stories, but she also shares her expertise as a journalism instructor. And so without that, let's invite her to come and join us on the show, on the Writer's Corner live show, shall we?
Yeah. Hi, Pamela. How are you?
How are you? Nice to see you both.
We're so glad you're here today. And we're so glad to share we get to share, we're going to be talking about both books. So it's exciting.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the show today. And I think we're going to dive right in because 30 minutes is gone in a blink. This happens to us every week. We want to carry on talking and the time is over. So in your book, And Then You Apply Ice, you delve into the intricacies of the female experience with very raw honesty. How do you navigate that very, very fine line between vulnerability and strength when you portray your characters?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. Um, I don't know that I do anything conscious to be aware of that. I just imagine what it might be like to be in that situation and to try to hone in on what a situation might evoke in the character's emotions and how that person might respond to it in a way that is real or real to that character. So I think it's what we all do in daily life. If we were to sort of step outside ourselves and go back and look at how we handled a certain situation, we would probably find elements of both of those in our own behaviors.
Absolutely. I mean, just in everyday life, I think we constantly walk that fine line between
Mm-hmm.
saying how it is and not oversharing, as it were. So I think it's kind of similar, don't you think, Mary?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Go ahead, Pamela.
Yeah, I think it's just being true to the character and not to not to have the character react too much or too little or just understand how that person that you've created would respond to something, whether it's something that's hurtful or something that's shocking or something that's disturbing or something that's funny even. So I think it's really just knowing who the character is as if she was a real person sitting next to you. And
I
that
think that's
helps.
great because it makes them relatable.
And it's really hard to do that.
Yes.
We have to, as a writer, you have to really literally live, eat, and breathe that character so that it comes across as real and not something that's made up and fake. So that really does require a lot of effort and concentration and all that other stuff, that energy. Okay, your novel At the Seams explores the theme of family secrets and generational trauma, which is such a conversation, I feel like, coming more to the forefront these days, and everyone has it, it seems like. How do you think the process of uncovering these hidden truths affects the character's sense of identity?
Well, in this case, it was a story of a little girl who grew up with a secret, and the secret was that her mom had a brother who was born before her, and died in the hospital. And the family chose to not speak about it because they were afraid to upset the grandmother. And so the trauma was the grandmother's loss, and the mystery was never solved for her, and also the grief was never dealt with because in an effort to protect her, she sort of lived alone with the grief, and so it took 2 generations for her granddaughter to try to turn the tables and try to expose and find out and help the situation along as best as she could. So it became part of the little girl's identity as she grew up, and she was a naturally curious kid, and so it became her goal, and sort of she saw the relationships in her family, and she started to see how everyone reacted to this original loss. And it helped her become who she was as a reporter when she grew up, as a daughter, as a single mom. So I think it affected her in different ways from how it affected her mom and certainly her grandmother. Yeah.
Definitely, because every dynamic, every role that you have in the family or wherever you are will affect how you see things or are affected by things. Now, many of your stories feature somewhat unconventional narrative perspectives, such as an eyeball observing its neighbors, or dogs witnessing infidelity. Yes. What draws you to these unique storytelling techniques?
Well, some of these weird situations actually happened in real life to me. So I would take the kernel of that and fictionalize. So I actually lived in a walk-up apartment in New York City when I was in my 20s. And the character, I changed the characters, a lot about the character's background and about her work and what she was doing there. But I did live in a walk-up apartment, and the apartment was robbed, and I did have a neighbor who would peek out through the crack of the door, and it wasn't as often or as continual as the character in the story, but it sparked something in me, and I blew it up and made it its own story. But so that was something that I actually remember happening to me, and that's how that story came about. So as a journalist, we're so trained to look around and observe and react, and so and then write accurately about what we see. But now, as a fiction writer, I can take all of those observations and say, well, what if it didn't happen like this in real life, but it happened like this? Or let's put a new character in experiencing what I experienced or saw, and that's where the fun is, because you can take real observations, and so they're authentic because they actually happen, and add everything else to it. The
I guess that's the nice thing.
The setting, the people.
You can take creative liberties, as they call it, I think.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
And it's
yes.
And it,
yes. And the quirkier, the better. And
right.
I'm always drawn to what's not typical, or what doesn't usually happen but can happen. So they're offbeat and quirky situations, but they're not unrealistic. And that I think makes it interesting for the reader, and also for the characters involved in it, because they react to this peculiar situation in human ways. So that makes it kind of fun. Yeah.
Well, and there's so many of us who have untypical situations in life that don't have those typical situations. So you get to write to, I would assume, a very large audience.
That's right. I'm sure everyone has felt that someone's been looking at them without their knowing. We've all had that kind of a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, without being paranoid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as my
and the dogs under the table, those were modeled on my two dogs.
Wow.
And yeah, and I experienced a situation of infidelity. So I figured, well, rather than write about it in a typical way, why not have the dogs discover it and try to convey their discovery to their person, and have them experience the frustration of that, as a way to talk about infidelity and secrets and loyalty. Because dogs are so loyal, and they're discovering this disloyalty in their home. And so I thought that would be an interesting kind of combination.
That's very interesting.
Loves the dogs.
So. Yeah, gosh, I've You know, it makes it, I guess, understanding the loyalty of animals, and the betrayal that they would feel
Mhm.
makes that a very unique sort of use case. Now, just on the back of what you said earlier, your background in journalism brings a very, very interesting perspective, a unique one actually, into your fiction writing. We talked about that just now. How do you think your journalistic experiences have influenced your approach to the way that you craft your characters and narratives in the fiction world?
Yes. Well, I think as journalists, we learn to look at every aspect of something. So I think the powers of observation, for one, and then also documentation or your researching. So I think those figure into it. So if I have a character, I'm going to look at that character from every angle in very specific detail. And excuse me, as a journalist, I've always tried to look at a story in a way that the next reporter wouldn't look at it. So from my viewpoint, it would be, I want to see all of the details that the next reporter wouldn't see to make my story stand out, or to give my story a different feel from everybody else's covering the same event. So it's the same thing. You're looking for the unexpected details about the scene or about the person, and then I think also the powers of research. And so if you're going to say that somebody does something for work, you're going to learn all about what that work is. So in the novel, there are dressmakers, and my grandfather was a dressmaker, but I didn't know all of the details about how to cut fabric. So I researched no end all about that, and that comes from my journalistic background. I know a lot of fiction writers do that, and you need to do that for historical fiction and other kinds of writing. But I sort of do it for everything. So I think it adds
That
color
yes, and
and
it gives you the
authenticity.
upper hand. Absolutely. It makes you look like an expert in what you're doing. And so,
Yes.
excuse me, and then you apply ice, you touch on themes of transgression and resilience. How do you see these themes intersecting in
Yes.
the lives of your female characters? And what do you hope readers take away from their journeys?
Yes. Well, the idea of transgression is that we all have these situations where other people do things, or situations in life happen that maybe infringe upon us in some way, or make us feel, happy, or less respected, or bothered, or not taken into consideration in some way. So, the and this happens to women and happens to men. It happens in different ways, I think, for women and for men. And the goal of it is, I always have in the back of my mind, well, if this happened to my daughters, well, how would I tell them what would to respond to it? What would I suggest that they do to stand up for themselves, to make it right, to confront, to check to see that they handled themselves in the way that they could be proud of, what to do with the situation rather than avoid it or continue to feel bad about it. So the idea is, I guess, a subtitle would be how to be resilient. Um, how to move on from experiences that make you feel bad, in ways that help you grow and be able to handle it the next time. So, and I think women are really good at that inherently, So.
Yes, we absolutely are. Now, I know we're switching back and forth between the two books just a little bit. Your protagonist in At the Seams, Kate Nichols, she grapples a bit with the weight of family history, again, a very relatable situation, and the burden of secrets. And I know we touched a little bit on it earlier. How do you think her journey reflects broader themes of identity and self-discovery?
Right, right. So she's a little girl in a family that was resisting the reality of a certain situation. And little girls, little kids they're loyal to their parents, to their families, and so she had to contend with a decision: do I indulge my curiosity, which is what it was at that point, and go against my family's desire to keep this quiet. So there are patterns of behavior, and in order to do what she wanted to do, which was to find out what happened and help her grandmother feel better, she would have to be at odds with what her parents were suggesting that she do. And that was hard. That's hard for an 8-year-old. So it took her about 35 years to be able to express it and to be able to look into it. And it only happened when she was a mother herself. And interestingly, this was a real life story in my family. And interestingly, I started thinking about my grandmother's lost baby when I was a single mom and newly divorced. And my children went to their dad's house for the first time. And my younger daughter was afraid to go, and she was crying in the car in the driveway. And this is a scene that I actually wrote into the book. And that weekend, I started thinking of my grandmother's baby and started looking up details to see what I could find. And later on, I thought, well, why was I doing that then? And it was something in me that felt a certain loss that somehow, triggered memories of my grandmother and that loss. And you know how motherhood is so powerful. And so, so the character's identity, grew into. It came out of that experience in certain ways, and it magnified, I think, who she was when she was older. I think that she was a naturally curious kid, and having this situation in a family with a naturally curious kid, she's got to do something with it at some point. Yeah.
Well, it's nice that you've been able to do something with it at this point, right, in life. And your stories often blur the lines between reality and perception, challenging readers to reconsider their assumptions. How do you approach creating these thought-provoking narratives? Will you share that with us?
Yes. Well, I guess it's the journalist in me, but I kind of just I write the scene how it comes to me, and I really it's character first. What would this person do? How would this person feel? What action would the person take in response? And how she sees it or how he sees it. I guess then I would look back and I would have that conversation and say, ooh, that person really had an issue with what that person perceived and what was real. That comes after for me. So and sometimes, I didn't even know that that's happening. Thematically, I'm not really aware. It just, the themes come out in the telling of the narrative. So, which is always interesting. Someone reviews your work or describes your work, and you're always surprised about what you did without realizing. I've recently I found one of the essays I wrote for the New York Times. I found was in Cliff Notes for students as an example of an essay, and it was fascinating to read it because the person who analyzed it, offered me insight into what I had written. So that's always a fascinating process to hear how what you write resonates with other people for different reasons. Yeah.
And what an honor.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Wow. Now we're almost at the end of our 30 minutes. I told you it goes so quickly, but just very quickly, in both your novel and story collection, you explore the impact of societal expectations on women's lives. A huge topic. I think we can talk about that for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But just briefly, how do you navigate these themes without falling into the trap of cliches? And what is your hope that, women would gain from your exploration of this topic?
Right. Expectations. Right. There are so many when it comes to how to be a mom, or how to be, a spouse, how to be a girlfriend, how to be someone in the workforce, so much of that comes from the world. And then of course there are our own expectations of what we want to achieve in all the different arenas of our life. These days too, I think, with everybody's lives so magnified all over the world and photographed, and and all of that. I think it's important for young girls and young women in particular to be aware of all of the outside craziness, and focus on what is important to them. Without the what other people are doing, or what other people expect you to do, or whatever the latest trend might be, or the latest promotion of oneself might be. There's so much of that I think affects women, particularly young women today, that it's important to shield yourself and to kind of think of the basics. I always tell my kids, think of the basics. What's the right thing to do? What's the good thing to do? Use your judgment. Don't listen to that. Stay
It's
true
always
to who
the
you
fine
are, figure
line,
out who
isn't it?
you are, experiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but I think it's so important for girls, because it's just so hard for them. So many things are coming at them, and so many things feel like the weight of the world, at times. So, it's an important thing, particularly, as a mom of daughters, just to keep them grounded in themselves and level-headed, and come back to, is this the right thing to do? This is the wise thing to do. Will I be proud of this? Is no one getting hurt in the process?
Well, as I said, it's a
does this
huge
really
topic.
matter?
Yeah,
Right.
it's a huge topic, and that helps you ground it. We unfortunately are out of time. Pamela, thank you so, so much. It was wonderful having you on the show, and we'd love to have you back. We could talk for another 30 minutes straight. So thank you to our
Thank you
amazing
both.
audience. It's a big
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you to our amazing audience for joining us today. And again, a huge big shout out to BSN. And we'll love to have you back again on the next episode of the Writers Corner live show. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care and have a great week. Thank you for joining us on the Writers Corner live show. 30 minutes of insightful author conversations with some of the biggest names in the industry, including award-winning authors and international indie sensations. Join us on the next episode of the Writers Corner live show.